very favorite websites to go to when you want to debate or discuss the intentions of the Founding Fathers. You know, we hear a lot about it. The text is full of this is what was going on, is to go to the source. And you can find the source for a lot of these documents, the discussion going on around these documents. The Constitution is a product of debate. The Constitution is a product of discussion among individuals who had different ideas. Go to the debate. Get to what they were thinking. You want to know why a certain section of the Constitution is in the Constitution? Go to those debates. And you can do that if you Google Avalon project. Google it's a Yale law site. And this Avalon project takes a lot of these documents that have been scanned into scanned, so you can pull up the picture of the Declaration of Independence. You can pull up the picture of the Constitution. This is taken and turned, digitized those words from the Constitution, those words from the Declaration of Independence, but also Madison's notes, Hamilton's notes, these different individuals who crafted the documents that we live by today. And here you go. Here are the state constitutions. You want to get an idea of what the state of Pennsylvania was doing at the time when the federal government was created. You got the Pennsylvania Constitution. One of the, strategic actions of this this group of individuals who got together to ratify the Constitution that I think was genius if you wanted it passed, was to not allow the state legislatures to ratify it, but to create delegations of citizens. To ask the state legislatures, the state government, those individuals who are the repositories of the power of the state, to give up that power to a federal government would have probably been asking too much. To ask citizen delegations at convention to consider the Shays Rebellion, to consider the shortcomings of the Articles of Confederation, gave it a better chance of passing. But I think what's important is, even though the citizens were the ones who were asked, and even though the citizens did ratify this Constitution, did put it into action, if you take a look at how these states' delegations ratified, and that's here too, if I can find it. Here are the ratifications of the Constitution by the different states. You'll get the product of the states. The states said, okay, yeah, we will ratify the Constitution. This is each one of these is the ratification. The states said, yeah, we will ratify this Constitution. But there's going to be conditions placed upon it. The Bill of Rights does not come after the Constitution is ratified. The Bill of Rights, or at least the concept of the Bill of Rights, comes before the Constitution is ratified. The Constitution would not have been ratified without those certain concepts, particularly the one that we find in the 10th, by the states, if that was not agreed to initially. The delegates who ratified the Constitution do so with conditions. Now, Rhode Island is certainly the last of the states to ratify the Constitution. We saw that in the Shays Rebellion piece. But what you see again and again, consistent with a number of the states, is the concept that you see here in 3D, that the powers of government may be reassumed by the people whensoever it shall become necessary to their happiness, that the rights of the states respectively to nominate and appoint all state officers and every other power, jurisdiction, and right which is not by the said Constitution clearly delegated to the Congress of the United States, clearly delegated to the Congress of the United States or to the departments of government thereof, remain to the people of the several states or their respective state governments to whom they may have granted the same. And you see that again and again and again and again, that if it's not in the Constitution, it'll be left to the states. And again, the 10th Amendment reflects that. And there's some debate and discussion today as to whether or not, the federal government was intended to have the power it has or wasn't intended to have the power it has. Usually it lies in this concept of the Constitution being a living, breathing, changing document. Well, I can guarantee you right now, if you came back to those delegates and you told them, listen, the Constitution is going to change, the power of the federal government is going to become immense, and those things that are not clearly delegated will at one day become a federal power, there's no way that that Constitution would have been ratified. I can tell you that with all degree of certainty. If they had a flash shot of 2010 and the relationship that the states had with the federal government today, there is no way they would have ratified that Constitution. Now, does that make the relationship that the states had with the federal government bad, wrong, not good? No. I'm not saying that what we have is bad, wrong, or not good. What I'm saying, however, is if you want to debate and discuss whether or not this was the intent of the Founding Fathers, of those delegates at convention, I can tell you that what we have today in relation to the states and the federal government was not what they had in mind. Now, does that make the actions of government and Congress, the federal government, unconstitutional? Well, it's an interesting discussion, because if what's going on today would not have flown when the Constitution was ratified, can you say that that indeed then is constitutional? I don't know. That's a different debate maybe for different individuals. It's a different era. But again, it goes to the heart of the ratification of the Constitution. Is there a Constitution? Is there a written document that is a Constitution? Does the federal government get its power from the Constitution? Yes or no?
No.
No. Where does the federal government get its power?
From the people.
From the people. How do the people define that power? Through the Constitution. So there is a written document that identifies the power of the federal government. Would the people have given the federal government the power they have via the Constitution if they would have seen in 2010 that this is the relationship between the federal government and the states? No. I can say that to you with all degree of certainty. No. Particularly given the conditions that the states, the delegates, were putting upon that ratification of the Constitution. The power of the federal government was going to be limited. I would suggest today the power of the federal government is not limited. Yeah.
Could they even have begun to imagine back then the changes in technology?
That's always a great question. Particularly when you start talking about freedom of speech and rights of privacy, what the government can and cannot do. The Patriot Act, for example, in terms of the federal government's ability to eavesdrop, if you will, on private citizens, and whether or not that would ever have been imagined. That's a great question. You probably couldn't imagine that. But I think part of the genius of the Constitution is that if things are going to change, the ability to change the Constitution is there as well. One of the discussions that I like to have with individuals is to say the Constitution was intended to be a living, breathing, changing document. If that's the case, why have the fifth article? For those of you who don't know what the fifth article of the Constitution is, it's the article that outlines how to amend the Constitution. It enumerates the process for changing the Constitution. If the Constitution was automatically to change as times changed, as technology changed, why have a process for amending it? Why is that necessary? Because times do change, and if the power rests with the states, then the process of amending or changing the power of the federal government is written. How do you do it? Get the 3/4 of the states necessary, and you can ratify the Constitution. You can give the federal government more power. Now, we fought a war, the Civil War, over this very issue. A lot of you know, oh no, slavery. We fought the Civil War over slavery. We did not fight the war over slavery. The slavery was certainly the issue that brought to head the conflict between the federal government and the rights of the states. Who's in charge here? That was the heart of the Civil War.